Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The icy New York wind swept across the sidewalks, stirring up dead leaves and a damp chill that seeped under your coat. In his vast penthouse apartment, Alexander Montgomery, a sad-eyed millionaire, stared out the window. The city lights twinkled, but they didn't illuminate the emptiness in his heart. Lavish parties, opulent dinners, luxury cars, none of it filled the deafening silence that pervaded his life. He was rich, famous, and incredibly lonely. That evening, Alexander decided to go for a walk, as if to escape the echo of his loneliness. The streets were bustling, but no conversation, no laughter seemed to reach him. And then, in a dimly lit alley, his gaze fell upon a scene that almost made him stop dead in his tracks. A young woman, Lily Harper, breathless, was trying to hold on to her 3 triplets, all about 4 years old, who were darting off in every direction. The children laughed, innocent and carefree, while their mother struggled to catch them. Alexander felt a strange warmth rising within him. He had never seen so much life, chaos, and love in a single moment. He approached gently, extending a hand, not to impose his help, but to offer his presence. Lily, tired and surprised, accepted his help, and for the first time in a long time, Alexander felt his heart beat faster. He didn't yet know that this encounter would change his life forever. That these triplets, so full of life and joy, would remind him of what he had lost for far too long. And that Lily, despite her daily struggles and difficulties, would show him that the most precious wealth isn't what you can buy, but what you share. New York was buzzing that morning. Taxis honked, hurried passers-by jostled each other, and Alexander Montgomery walked slowly, almost absent-mindedly, lost in thought. He had just left his luxury apartment, tired of the gilded walls that echoed only with silence. As he passed by a park, a burst of high-pitched, crystalline laughter made him look up. 3 children were running around in all directions, their boundless energy a stark contrast to the quiet, hushed atmosphere of his life. Behind them, a young woman with light brown hair, wearing a worn coat and a scarf that was too short, was trying to catch up with them. Max. Emma. Luke. Stop, she cried, breathless. Alexander felt his heart clench. These children, so full of life, seemed to possess a light his life hadn't known for years. Without thinking, he approached and, in a soft but steady voice, said, "I can help you." Lily, surprised, looked him up and down. The man in the elegant suit, with slightly silvery hair at the temples, looked nothing like the usual passers-by. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. With his calm presence and strong hands, Alexander managed to catch Max, the most boisterous of the triplets, and then calm the other 2 children. Lily, her eyes shining with gratitude, murmured, "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you." "Call me Alex," he replied with a slight smile, something he hadn't done for months. For the first time in a long time, Alexander felt that loneliness could perhaps transform into something different. And he didn't yet know that this encounter would change his life more profoundly than he could have imagined. After the encounter in the park, Alexander couldn't stop thinking about Lily and the triplets all day. For the first time in years, he felt a genuine curiosity about a life he didn't know, a simple life, but one filled with love and energy. The next morning, he found himself near the park again, hoping to catch a glimpse of the little family. And, as if by magic, there they were. Lily was trying to calm the children who were fighting over a deflated ball. Max was still chasing the neighbor's dog, Emma was gathering fallen leaves, and Luke was clinging to her hand. "Hello," said Alexander timidly. Lily looked up and gave a tired but sincere smile. "Hello. Alex, is that right?" "Yes. I was wondering if you needed a little help today." She hesitated, then, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, agreed. Alexander began to play with the children, to watch over them, to laugh with them at innocent little pranks. For the first time, he felt a warmth that no villa or yacht could offer him. At the end of the day, Lily sat on a bench, breathing deeply. "You know, It's not easy, she murmured. Raising 3 children alone, working, sometimes I feel overwhelmed. Alexander looked at her attentively and felt a protective, almost instinctive impulse. I can help you. One way or another. Lily looked at him, surprised by his sincerity. Thank you, but it's not easy for someone like you. Perhaps, but I know how to recognize what is precious, he replied softly. As they got up to go home, Alexander realized that his life, until then empty and monotonous, was beginning to take on an unexpected hue. And Lily, despite her worries and fatigue, felt a strange sense of security by his side. The bond had just formed, fragile but promising. And no one yet knew how much this encounter would change the lives of each of them. A few days after their first meeting, Alexander felt an irresistible urge to see Lily and the triplets again. He didn't know exactly why, but every minute spent away from them seemed empty, devoid of meaning. One Saturday morning, he went to the park with a small bag containing toys and snacks that he had carefully chosen. When he arrived, he saw Lily trying, in vain, to calm the children who had started a frantic race around the lake. Alex, exclaimed Lily when she saw him. You didn't need to. I just wanted to help, he replied with a smile, handing the toys to the children. Max, the most daring, grabbed a ball and shouted. Thank you, sir. Emma and Luke imitated their brother, laughing heartily. Alexander, amused and touched, felt his heart lighten. He understood then that his wealth had never had the power to bring such simple happiness. After a few hours of playing and chasing after the children, Lily invited Alexander for coffee at a small cafe in the neighborhood. Sitting opposite her, he observed the fatigue in her eyes, the lines on her face marked by sleepless nights and relentless responsibilities. You must have an incredible life, yet you choose to take care of us, she said hesitantly. My life was incredible, but empty, he confessed. And now, I feel like I'm discovering what it truly means to live. Lily, touched by this sincerity, couldn't help but smile. She sensed that a profound change was coming, not only for her and her children, but also for Alexander, this rich but so humane man, who was about to turn their daily lives upside down. Later, as he left the cafe, Alexander promised to come back regularly to help Lily. This small commitment became the starting point of a relationship that would grow stronger every day, marked by tenderness, the children's laughter, and the first gestures of complicity between him and Lily. But what no one knew yet was that this budding happiness would soon be threatened by unexpected obstacles, and that the triplets carried with them a secret that could change everything. A few weeks after their first meeting, Alexander had begun to integrate himself into Lily and the triplets' daily lives. He came regularly, played with the children, and helped Lily with some of the daily chores. But this fragile harmony was about to be shattered. One afternoon, while they were strolling through a bustling downtown market, an incident occurred. Max, ever curious and fearless, ran towards a fruit stall without looking where he was going. In his haste, he bumped into a cart filled with crates of apples, which collapsed with a resounding crash. Max! Lily screamed, her heart pounding. The shattered crates littered the ground, and a crowd quickly gathered around the scene. Alexander rushed over to calm the situation. He helped to pick up the crates, calmed Lily, who was trembling with anger and worry, and, with surprising composure, addressed the vendor. It's my responsibility, I'll pay for the damages. Lily looked at him, stunned. She had never experienced such support. This gesture, simple for Alexander but immense for her, further strengthened the bond that was forming between them. After this incident, as they sat down on a bench to catch their breath, Alexander noticed a light scar on Lily's wrist, almost invisible under her coat. Are you all right? He asked softly. Lily looked away, a veil of sadness passing over her eyes. It's nothing, just an old memory, she murmured, but Alexander sensed that something deeper lay behind those words. At that moment, he understood that his role was not limited to being an external protector. He had to get to know Lily, her wounds, and the silent stories that the triplets carried with them. That day, Alexander realized that the life he believed to be perfect and complete was, in reality, an empty shell. And that this small group, Lily and her children, held the key to finally filling it with meaning and warmth. But a greater secret, still invisible to their eyes, was waiting to emerge, a secret that could turn everything they thought they knew about their lives upside down. In the following weeks, Alexander became increasingly involved in Lily and the triplets' lives. Every morning, he picked them up to take them to the park, helped Lily prepare meals, and even organized the children's medical appointments. But despite this closeness, a mystery still surrounded Lily and her children. One evening, as they were returning from a long walk, Alexander noticed that Lily seemed lost in thought, silent, her gaze fixed on the sidewalk. "Lily, is something bothering you?" he asked gently. She hesitated, as if weighing her words before letting them out. "It's complicated," she murmured. "You can't understand what it's like to raise 3 children alone after everything I've been through." "Try me," Alexander insisted, with a gentleness that surprised her. "I want to understand." Then, for the first time, Lily spoke about her past. She recounted how she had lost her husband in a tragic accident, and how life had subsequently taken a dramatic turn. The triplets had become her only reason to go on, her light in the darkness. But over time, the fear of not being up to the task, of not protecting her children, had isolated her from any outside support. Alexander listened in silence, his heart heavy. He realized how the loneliness he himself had felt was nothing compared to the crushing responsibility Lily carried every day. "You're incredible," he finally murmured. "I don't know how you do it, but I want to help you. Not just with the children, but with everything." Lily looked away, moved but wary. She wasn't used to someone offering help unconditionally, and even less so to that person insisting despite her reservations. "Thank you, Alex, but I don't want them to see you as a savior. I just want them to see you as a good person." Alexander smiled, knowing that gaining their trust would take time. But for the first time, he felt he had found a real purpose, something that went far beyond bank accounts and material possessions. He knew that this family, fragile yet full of life, would teach him what it truly meant to love and fight for someone. And as they entered their building, a strange feeling settled within him. The life he thought was complete was not yet complete, but perhaps it was precisely because he had not yet met the right people to fill it. A few days after sharing her past with Alexander, Lily sensed a strange unease in her neighborhood. Neighbors had started asking intrusive questions about her life and the children. No one knew exactly why, but she had the feeling that her family was being watched. One afternoon, as she was returning from the park with the triplets, she noticed a man who seemed to be following their movements from a few blocks away. Her heart sank. The children, carefree, were laughing and running around them, oblivious to the potential danger. Alexander, who was present that day, also noticed the man. He frowned, his protective instinct immediately triggered. "Lily, stay with the children. I'll make sure everything is all right," he said firmly. But before he could get close, the man made a sudden movement and tried to grab Max, the boldest of the triplets. Alexander reacted in a split second. He grabbed the child and slammed the man against a wall, his gaze dark and menacing. "You have the wrong children," he growled, his voice icy but controlled. The man recoiled, surprised by Alexander's strength and determination, and quickly moved away, disappearing into the crowd. Lily, trembling and panting, threw herself into Alexander's arms, silently thanking heaven that nothing bad had happened. Thank you," she murmured, tears in her eyes. Alexander hugged the children tightly, then looked intently at Lily. "I'm protecting you, Lily. No one will hurt them as long as I'm here." That day, a new dynamic took hold. Alexander was no longer just a friend or a source of support, he had become a pillar of security, an indispensable presence in their lives. Lily understood that her instinctive mistrust now had to give way to trust, and the children began to see him as a reassuring and solid figure. But this incident was only the beginning. The threat from the outside was not isolated. Someone knew, someone was watching, and that someone could soon shatter the fragile life of this family, and force Alexander to fight like never before. After the incident in the park, Lily felt the weight of her past become even heavier. She knew she had to protect her children at all costs, but she couldn't hide the truth forever about certain events that had shaped their lives. One evening, when Alexander came to dinner at her house to spend some quiet time with the triplets, Lily decided it was time to open up more. Sitting around the table, the children playing with crayons and notebooks, she took a deep breath. "Alex, there's something you need to know," she began. Alexander looked at her attentively, understanding that what she was about to say was important. "Before my children were born, my husband, he had debts and enemies. After his death, I had to flee from certain people who wanted to harm us. That's why I've kept my life simple and discreet." Alexander felt a tension rising in the air. He realized that the threat he had sensed was not accidental. These enemies could return, more determined than ever, and endanger Lily and her children. "You should have told me sooner," he murmured, his voice deep but calm. "Now I understand why you're so cautious, but you're not alone." Lily looked down, a mixture of relief and fear on her face. She knew that by revealing this secret, she was opening a door to trust, but she was also exposing her family to risk. I don't want you to be involved," she said. "I'm already involved," Alexander replied confidently. "And I won't leave you to face this alone." The triplets, unaware of the gravity of the conversation, laughed and exclaimed, showing off their drawings. This contrast between the children's innocence and the weight of Lily's secret struck Alexander deeply. He understood that protecting this family meant not only intervening in dangerous situations, but also being there for them, despite the difficult truths and painful past. That night, a silent alliance formed between Alexander and Lily. A promise: they would face all obstacles together, and nothing and no one would destroy this new family they were beginning to build. But what they didn't yet know was that Lily's enemies were not far away, and that imminent danger was about to strike harder than ever, testing their courage, their trust, and their budding bond. A few days after Lily's confession, the threat became real. Alexander and Lily had returned from a walk in the park when, as they approached Lily's building, a black vehicle suddenly pulled up in front of them. Two men got out, their faces impassive, and walked quickly toward the small family. The triplets, joyful and oblivious, rushed towards their mother. Alexander felt his heart pounding. Instinctively, he positioned himself in front of them, protective and resolute. "Back up," he shouted, his voice ringing with authority. The men, surprised by his audacity, paused for a moment. Without thinking, Alexander grabbed Max and Emma, then led Luke and Lily to the building's entrance. Once inside, he locked the door and stood before it, his gaze grim. "They won't touch you," he murmured, more to himself than to Lily. But Alexander knew that staying hidden was only a temporary solution. He had to act, find out who these men were and why they were targeting Lily. He began discreetly questioning his contacts, using his resources to follow the trail. Meanwhile, Lily, trembling but determined, clung to him. "Alex, I didn't want you to get involved in this," she said, her voice breaking. "I will not back down," he replied firmly. "You are my family now. And I will protect this family, no matter what." That night, while the triplets were finally asleep, Alexander stayed awake, pondering how best to counter this threat. He realized that his life of solitude and luxury had never demanded such courage, and that he had never felt such a strong sense of duty. The next day, he put his plan into action, to watch, anticipate, and act before these men could get close. But he also knew that this battle would not only be physical. It would be emotional, strategic, and would test everything he felt for Lily and her children. That night, Alexander understood a simple yet powerful truth: wealth is worthless compared to life and the safety of loved ones. And he was ready to risk everything to protect this family who, in just a few weeks, had transformed his world. After several days of surveillance, Alexander finally discovered the identity of the men who were harassing Lily. They were ruthless creditors linked to the debts left by Lily's deceased husband. But digging deeper, he uncovered an even darker secret: some of them had connections to influential people who would stop at nothing to collect what they considered owed. One evening, Alexander decided it was time to confront the threat directly. He engaged in a strategic confrontation, combining caution and determination, in order to protect Lily and her triplets. In an abandoned warehouse, Alexander confronted the men who had tried to harm the family. His gaze was cold, calculating, but charged with an unprecedented protective energy. "Leave them alone," he shouted, his voice echoing in the vast empty space. One of the men, the bolder one, stepped forward. "And who are you to tell us that?" he sneered. "Someone who will never let my family be destroyed." The tension escalated. Alexander used all his strength and intelligence to disarm and neutralize the situation. The men, surprised by his courage and impeccable strategy, had never imagined that a mere man, even a wealthy one, could challenge them with such determination. Meanwhile, Lily and the triplets, who had remained safe thanks to the vigilance of a few trusted allies that Alexander had mobilized, waited, their hearts pounding. When everything was finished, Alexander returned to them, breathless but triumphant. Lily, her eyes shining with tears, approached him. "You risked your life, for us," she murmured. "Because you are my family now. And I will never let you down." At that precise moment, a deep bond was born between them. They knew that, despite the hardships, they could overcome any obstacle together. But Alexander also understood that the battle wasn't over yet. These enemies were just a taste of the trials to come. The real challenge would be to protect the family in a lasting way, and to rebuild a life where Lily's painful past could never again threaten their happiness. The days following the confrontation were calm, almost surreal. The air seemed lighter, the sun warmer, and every smile from the triplets now tasted of victory. Alexander, Lily, and the children began to feel a security they had never known. One morning, Alexander arrived with a surprise for Lily. In his hands, a small notebook and a pen, symbols of his desire to create a future where nothing would be left to chance. "I want you to know," he said softly, "that no matter what the past has left behind, we have the power to rebuild. Together." Lily smiled, moved, and hugged the children tightly. Max, Emma, and Luke jumped into Alexander's arms, laughing joyfully, while the young mother gazed at the painting in wonder. For the first time in years, she felt truly supported, loved, and safe. Over time, Alexander helped Lily find stable and comfortable housing, a place where the triplets could play without fear and create truly happy memories. He used his resources not to impose himself, but to protect and provide opportunities, schools for the children, medical care, and even small adventures they could never have imagined on their own. But beyond material possessions, it was the human connection that transformed everything. The laughter in the apartment, the shared meals, the evenings spent telling stories before going to sleep, all of this created a home, a family, something Alexander had thought he had lost forever. One evening, as the sky blazed with orange and purple colors, Alexander and Lily found themselves on the balcony, the children asleep. "Thank you, for everything, Alex," Lily murmured. "You've changed our lives." "No, Lily, you've changed me," he replied, his voice soft but full of emotion. "You've taught me what it truly means to love and be loved." They exchanged a look filled with promise, trust, and hope for the future. Past hardships, threats, loneliness, and fear, all of that now belonged to the past. And as night gently enveloped the city, Alexander knew with certainty that the family he had met by chance on a New York street was now his true wealth. A wealth made of laughter, tenderness, and an unwavering love that could never be bought. The lonely millionaire had found his place, and that place was called family.